Hello, thank you both for joining us today. Before we get into intros, I just wanted to really quickly share kind of how we got here today. And so we were chatting at the BII summer event not so long ago, and we were talking about this podcast and how it's all about well-being and looking after your teams. And a huge part of that is upskilling and career progression for people working in any job, but specifically in the hospitality industry. And it just so happens that you two know a thing or two about that. So could you tell us who you are, what you do, and kind of, in relation to the upskilling, career progression, kind of what we're going to talk about today?
Yes, we absolutely can. My name is Vicky and this is Giordana. We work for Appetite Apprenticeships, and we work with businesses in the hospitality sector to simplify, unpick and demystify the apprenticeship levy.
Excellent. So I'm hoping we can do those three things today, because I don't know very much at all.
You're not alone.
I was going to say, you're not the only one.
Should we start with the basics then? Yeah. You mentioned apprenticeships and the levy. I guess if we look at the apprenticeships, what is an apprenticeship and how is it different to other forms of education and training?
So basically an apprenticeship is how you're earning when you're learning. So instead of going to college or university and doing a usual vocational training, you can actually have hands-on experience learning whilst you're doing the role. So benefits are that you will come out without a 30-year student debt, and also you get to earn and really get that hands-on experience of the trade that you're doing.
Why do I think apprenticeships are for younger people and people who are starting in their career?
Because everybody thinks that, we're constantly trying to, bust the myths around apprenticeships. As long as you're over 16, anybody can do an apprenticeship. The only kind of stipulations are that you have to have lived in the UK for over 3 years, not be in full-time education, and also have, if it was back in my day, GCSEs, grade C or above, or nowadays I think it's level 4. So yeah, as long as you've got those, but it's not a problem if you don't. You can do something called functional skills, which you can do alongside your apprenticeship to make sure that you are up to standard with the English and the maths level needed.
Did it used to be for younger people, or is it only something that's kind of evolving now?
Yeah, so it's always been for younger people, very historically though. I mean, since the levy came in, it really did open up apprentices to every age, and instead of thinking of it as entry level, someone coming into the trade new without any skills or experience, now it can be used to actually upskill people. So, say you're in a management role and you want to take that next step up to operations or a head office role, or pivot to a different division within our industry, you can then upskill yourself via an apprenticeship. And if you've got a levy, even better, it's funded by the government.
So that seems like a bit of a no-brainer for people wanting to upskill or pivot, exactly like you said. What about for the employers? What are the benefits for an employer?
So in terms of an employer, it's hugely untapped resource, because from an employer's point of view, let me put it this way: there's 3.3 billion pounds in the last 3 years that has been returned. Government levy has returned to the government, to the Treasury. So it's been completely wasted. So it's a hugely untapped one for the smaller SMEs. So for pub groups and pub partners. So what they can do is they can upskill their team. So they can use it as an upskilling tool. They can also use it as a huge retention piece, because your shortest course is around about 12 months. So at the same time as upskilling, you're also training them in the field that they need to be within. It's a great social responsibility piece, because you are working with local communities. So you usually reach out to your local colleges, your local training providers, so that you're helping with their social mobility, but you're also looking at inclusion and diversity within your workforce as well, and bringing that up to speed. But I think possibly the biggest benefits are your retention piece, and also your recruitment tool, because as we were saying before, you mentioned, why do I think it's only just for entry-level staff? It can be, and it's fabulous, because we've got a skills gap at the moment within our industry, and we all know that, and it's coming, it's getting bigger. And so what we kind of almost need to create a culture of grow your own. within our businesses. And so as a small business, that's fabulous. You want to do that, but you don't have the L&D department. You don't have the huge infrastructure within your people team to be able to accommodate that.
Yeah.
So what you can use apprenticeships for is that you do have, if you've got a levy, fabulous, because you can tap into that and use it, and then you bring in the experts. So you bring in the training providers who are going to be essentially a bolt-on to your either your recruitment team or a bolt-on to your L&D team, so that you can have them learning and earning at the same time. So you can create, say for example, if you're using it as a recruitment tool, you could create an academy. So you can create a chef's academy, and you can bring them in. You can have apprentices waiting in the wings almost to be your next recruit. So in terms of really tapping into it, we don't. And the reason we don't tend to is usually because of lack of knowledge, and also lack of visibility. There's a huge kind of, I mean, I suppose, as you said, you don't know anything about apprentices. And before I started this, and we both started this, it was very limited. It was like, yes, for new starters. No, it's not. It's to upskill your team as well. So to have your management team, to build in your learning, your future learners. So you pick your key people within your business and put them onto a management apprenticeship program. And that is completely funded by the levy. So 100% of that training is covered by the levy, which I have to say you have paid for.
Okay, so people are paying into the levy regardless of, or businesses, I should say, are paying into the levy regardless of them using it or not.
A little bit of a caveat there, because if you are a very large business and you have a pay bill of over 3 million, then automatically you pay your tax. It's a tax that's taken, and it's 0.5% is taken from your pay bill. So it sits in a pot waiting to be utilised, and it can only be utilised for apprenticeships. This is where the kind of caveat comes. So because people would love to use it for the short courses, which is being looked at the government at the moment with the big changes that are happening at the moment. They're looking at shortening the courses. So watch this space, because we've got big change coming. There's a couple of new changes that have just happened in April 2024, which is fantastic. Big opportunities, huge opportunities for small employers, because now anybody who doesn't pay a levy, so you're too small, your bill's under 3 million, you're not going to pay. Therefore, you can now capitalise on the new government structures being put in place, which is that anybody up to the age of 21 be completely free. So you don't have to have a levy. All you have to do is set up your levy account, and then you can apply for funding, and that will be covered. So that's fantastic. And also there's another element, which is the 50% as well. So that it used to be levy gifting. So you could gift, large companies can gift to smaller companies to encourage the progression of their people and the development of their people.
Oh wow, that's excellent.
And it has just been lifted from 25, again in April. It's lifted from 25% that large companies can gift to 50%.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's huge. So they really want to encourage people, the youth culture, to come into our sector.
So for small businesses that would like to, do they reach out to larger companies and ask them to give? Like, how does that work?
So in terms of, so if you have, so it's great if you've got under 21, so you want to bring your next level of combi chefs in and you want to employ them, fabulous, because they'll all be covered and it'll be covered for free. So it's wonderful. If you have a small levy, so you might have just slipped into the levy gifting, into the levy pot. So you may have something like around about 20,000 sitting in your levy pot waiting to be utilised. And by the way, if you don't utilise it within 24 months, within 2 years, you lose it. So it's that use it or lose it philosophy with the government, of course, because they want it to go back into the treasury and keep it.
And there's also no transparency at all on where that funding goes back to. All we know is that it goes back to the government, and that it goes into education, but there's no transparency on where that goes. So you've really got to use it.
Yeah. But ideally, it's sitting there waiting to, the whole structure is put in place so that it could be utilised for the small SMEs.
Okay.
So that it could be sitting there to be used. Yeah. But what people aren't doing, and what we're on a complete mission to do, is to make sure that if you're not using it, give it to us, and we will make sure that it goes to the SMEs. Not give it to me. I'd love to take it. Of course I would. But no, don't give it to me. Give it to. We can assist you through partnership to put you in touch with the right people to be able to offer that gifting facility, so you can transfer your funds across. So we can facilitate that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not
so
convenient for me.
you work with both larger companies and smaller
Yes,
companies, and you're the middleman
Yeah.
who does all that.
Like
That
a
is
conduit.
excellent.
Absolutely.
Conduit. We're the middleman,
Yeah.
kind of.
And what we do is we look to put a robust strategy in place. So rather than just say, I'll just have two apprenticeships,
Yeah.
then have you looked at your back of house? Right, so we can bring in, and we use it as a recruitment tool because that's your greatest need. So we can build an academy, a chef's academy for you under the guise of apprenticeships. So it's still being covered by the government there. And then for the front of house, then you might need to upskill your management team. So you can put a future leaders course in place. And then for your head office team, if you've got somebody who's on a CIPD, then you can be funded through the government there. And it goes from level 2 right the way up to level 7. So you're kind of intermediate, say level 2 commis chef, right the way through to a senior people professional, CIPD, HR, and that is a level 7, so it's a master's. So a kind of degree master's level. So it's really diverse.
And that definitely ties into the whole demystifying piece that you were talking about, because you told me at the beginning of this that apprenticeships are not just for younger people who are starting in their careers, but I have that in my head. So I was just thinking that if I saw that on maybe like a job advertisement that there was access to do apprenticeships, I would still, because I have it in my head that it's for younger people, not really understand what that means. So I guess it's that whole demystifying. So I mean,
raising
I guess
awareness.
Completely.
What if we were to kind of go deeper into that? What types of things can people do apprenticeships in? Is it vast and wide, and kind of no matter what your role is, there's an apprenticeship for you?
Absolutely massive. What, over 800 different standards? So obviously in hospitality alone, you know, that you can have anything from a commis chef, as Vicky mentioned, right up to, you know, a HRD doing a master's. So there is a whole wide variety, but across all of the industries there is an apprenticeship to fit every industry. And what, we're the 3rd largest employer in the country, so apprenticeships in our industry is a huge benefit, and that's why we're on such a mission to really put apprenticeships out there at the forefront of everybody's minds, and be that support to help them have a strategic approach to them, bust the myths around apprenticeships, put my teeth in, and also be able to keep people in our industry. And I think that's a big part of what apprenticeships, as well as the levy pots, can be used for. You know, we can't keep seeing people leaving our industry when we have all the tools to be able to train them, upskill them, and give them a real career, not just a job.
Well, I guess it's knowing that as well, isn't it?
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's it. And also, I suppose the new government, you know, we don't know what skills for England are going to do yet. You know, there's speculation, people talk about it, but Vicky and I are very much of the mindset, until it's black and white on a piece of paper, it's legislation, it's business as usual. So everything still stands for us. And there is I mean, I honestly, I feel like I'm going to get my soapbox in a second. There's just so much opportunity around apprenticeships, and it is complicated. They don't make it easy, but that's why we're here, to make it easier for people and do things like we're doing today. You know, talk about it.
So we have, 120,000 vacancies currently in the hospitality sector, 120,000. And we're saying there's a skills gap, a shortage.
And you said that it's
However, it's getting bigger. So how are we going to combat that? That is why the government are trying to incentivize people to take the new generation, the next generation, which we love and which we always have coming into our business, but we want to keep them. And I think that's the problem that we keep. That's the problem we have. We have a retention problem within our industry. We do, because it's seen as transient. And what we can do there is, the reason it's considered transient is because we don't quite educate them, we don't give them the right skills. So there's a lack of training in that starter kind of area, on the kind of floor level or the chef level, and then they leave. Whereas if you do put something in place, which is an apprenticeship, which is, say, an 18-month apprenticeship, you've got the person for an 18-month period, you're investing in them as a future, you're giving them the valuable skill set that they need to succeed, but you're also building in your succession planning as well within your team, so that you're kind of you're future-proofing your your team for the for the business that they're going to be in, the career path they want.
Absolutely, and I think hospitality already has an advantage with the way it's set up in terms of you can do shift work, you can do flexible hours, you can work part-time easily, you can work later into the night, you might have a side hustle that you want to do during in the middle of the day, and you know that's already in place for younger generations. That's why it's appealing for younger generations. And so then the next step is keeping them.
Yeah.
Retention.
Although there's lots of, you know, statistics out there that show us that is what they're looking for. They want a job that's going to allow them to have passion projects and, you know, potentially have a couple of jobs. But they can also still, you know, you don't have to be full-time in doing an apprenticeship. You know, there would be some people that are part-time. I mean, it would be an incredible amount of work, but there's no barrier to it, you know. So they can do a couple of different roles, couple of different jobs, you know, and that's what they want. But there is also a lot of evidence out there to show that, you know, people seeking employment at the moment, they want to know what their career development is. They want to be trained, you know, so apprenticeships is one of the best ways that, you know, our industry can be able to promote that and support that, because it's a levy pot that they have there already to spend.
So why, other than maybe that educational piece where people don't know, are there any other reasons why businesses, employers aren't jumping on this? Because when you're talking to me right now, it feels like a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, right? It is. It does. And actually, when we speak to operations managers, the stakeholders, they kind of, their eyes are opened and they go, well, why didn't I know about this?
Yeah.
Why didn't I know about levy gifting? Because that's what the government set it up to actually facilitate that for small businesses. And if you don't have, if you don't have enough in your pot, then that doesn't stop you either, because you can either levy gift completely, because if you don't have anything at all. But if you're the middleman who has a little bit but not quite enough, then what you can do, you automatically, if you spend a little bit too much in your apprenticeships, then you slip into what they call co-investment, and the government will still fund 95% of that training course, you are only covering 5%. It's like, and when you break that down, if you're looking at per learner, you're probably looking at, depending on your because all the different ones have different prices attached to them. So it depends on which training provider you use and which standard you use for your different training. But it's roughly around about £400 per year for the whole of the lifetime of the programme, which is a lot cheaper than bringing in an external trainer to do an odd 1 or 2 days. You've got sustained training on a monthly basis, and there has to be there are definite guidelines that you have to stick to, and you have to have 20% of that learning time has to be what they classify as off-the-job learning, which is ironic because it's actually on the job. So you're actually learning whilst you're in the job at the same time.
Why is that?
Oh, don't you love the terminology?
Because it's the government. They like to, you know, they don't make it easy. And I think that is one of the massive reasons. You know, I've been speaking to people, as is Vicky, that are, they've been in this industry for years, you know, just probably as much as we have, and they have no idea about apprenticeships or how to spend their levy or where to even start, because they make it so complicated. You know, if you went and read, you know, how do I set up apprenticeships in my business on the government website, you'd be bored in about 3 seconds and you'd close it down. You'd be like, oh, we'll park that for a little bit longer. And, you know, I've been in enough people teams to know it's exactly what happens. But the businesses that embrace it actually end up with a future-proof workforce and that talent pipeline, and definitely inspire someone to stay within our industry and see it as a viable career,
which is hugely, as we just spoke about, hugely important in today's climate, isn't it?
And being able to pivot, right? Because when you're a general manager, how many general managers want to go and be an ops manager, right? One, those jobs, there's not enough of them. So, you know, the competition is very high. But if you just pivoted to a different division, you can use an apprenticeship to upskill yourself and go into marketing or go into procurement or go into finance or accounting. There's a million different things you can do.
You may already be a general manager. You might be you're already in a managed pub and you're kind of looking after your team, but you then have to look after all the HR. You have to look after all the payroll. You have to consider all of that. So you might think, actually, that's going to be more beneficial for me to be on a CIPD level 5, so HR or an L&D level 5, and then that could be funded by the government levy through either levy gifting, by one of your breweries, or it could be that you just think, actually, well, let's just set this up, and I can fund it. I can spend that 5%, and the government will pay for the whole of the training for me. And and it depends on which courses you're looking at, but you are looking at kind of 16,000, 18,000 to be put on these kind of higher level degree, master's levels courses. So why not capitalise on the levy that's sitting there waiting for you to be used?
Oh, I don't know.
There's 3.3 billion returned in the last 3 years.
Wow.
That is what my maths is terrible, but that's I can work this out. It's 1.1 million a year, and that works out around about kind of 90 million a month is being given back to the government. And lots of companies are saying, we don't have money for training. You do. It's sat in your pot waiting for you to be utilised. So, and if you don't use it, it will expire on a monthly basis. So it will sit on your P&L, and you'll be able to see it, and you'll be able to see the figure dripping out of your account every single month. Because if you don't use it, it goes back.
Okay.
So use it.
So are there any other reasons why people or organisations don't use the levy?
The main reason is lack of awareness. So they just don't know what's available to them. Lack of knowledge to be able to set up the account in the first place and get it all up and running. And the third reason is capacity within their team to enable them to put that in place. Because even if you do have the knowledge, you might not have the time, because you are sitting in a function that includes, because during COVID, we got rid of a lot of our L&D teams.
We did.
And we tightened our people teams. And so jobs have been kind of pulled together. So your HR may well now be recruitment and L&D, and they're looking after the HR function. And then you throw and what are we doing with apprenticeships in? It's bottom of the list. Yeah. Because it's not absolutely the priority at that time.
And I guess as a people team, you have to have the buy-in of your ops team and senior leaders. And because unfortunately sometimes with the best of intentions, it just drops to the bottom of the list in terms of priority, right?
Completely. Yeah. It's not that it's always a massive priority in a people team, but without that buy-in and engagement from your peers, literally top down, it will not be successful. And it's not an overnight fix. An apprenticeship program is something that you have to start and be committed to. Constant awareness, constant engagement, and also the learner needs a lot of support, which could be off-putting to some companies, but guaranteed if you really engage with that learner, you'll get the best out of them. So it's time well spent, if you ask me. Lucky enough to have been in a company that had a really great apprenticeship program, and it probably took about 18 months, if we're totally honest, hand on heart, to completely get it off from the ground leveled up. But now there's a waiting list for people to join this one particular apprenticeship, which happens to be brewing. And it just goes to show, with commitment from literally top down, you can really future-proof your workforce and have key talent sitting there waiting for you in your business. But also growing, your managers who've come in, maybe they came in as a bartender and they do you know what, love this, I really want to be a manager. And you just put them on an apprenticeship program that can help them learn those management skills, all those really key people. I know we hate calling them soft skills, but those soft skills, communication, being able to deal with tough situations, and they can learn all of those on the job, yes, but give them some tools to back that up. Yeah. And also they get to go at a qualification, that they can say, I've done this. I didn't go to college, I didn't go to university, really doesn't matter. I've got a qualification and I did it whilst, I was still earning money, which everyone needs nowadays.
Exactly.
Let's face it.
It's so important.
It's so important. we're not in a world where, mum and dad can necessarily pay for everything. It's expensive to go to university, and this is the next best way to do it if you've picked your industry that you want to be in. And like the big fives, talking about other industries, not just hospitality, they have huge demand for their graduate and their apprenticeship schemes. So should ours.
Yeah. And I think also if you inherently, what we've done as in people teams, because of our capacity within our teams, we have elevated a great waiter. Brilliant waiter, brilliant at ops. We've elevated him to, do you know what, I think you need to be a supervisor. You're going to be a supervisor. It's fabulous. And they're really excited and they really wanted to have him on board. And then what you do is you give them that title, but you don't give them the skills to enable them to be that great manager. And it's so different,
Yes,
as we
it's
all know,
very
from
different.
ops to that management level.
Yeah.
It's a huge leap. And I think that's where we have been very guilty during COVID of tapping people on the shoulder and kind of escalating them really quickly and promoting them probably too quickly. But we've given them maybe 1 day training as a manager.
Yeah.
We'll bring in a company, they can give you a management training course, kind of in 1 day. And right, you're done, go. You're done. So and we're not giving them the correct skills, and then they fail, and we wonder why they're failing, and we kind of say, oh, they're just not good enough. No, because we haven't given them the skills to put them in place. So if you can say, right, we can put you on a management training course, that will be government funded. Don't call it an apprentice, because otherwise, if you're looking at a manager who's been, and they think, I'm not an apprentice, I've been doing this job for 3 years now. And there's a connotation that's attached to that kind of word. So, government training, funded training course, or a future leader course. We can put you on that. And the experts will come in for you, paid for by the government, to train your team. Why would you not take that?
Yeah,
because then that will free up time within your people function to be able to do the other jobs that you want to do. So it's time saving. It's also, but people have the misconception that it's going to take them time.
Okay.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's very learner-led now. It's changed. It's changed a huge amount. So actually, as from the management's perspective, when they think, oh, it's going to be an extra workload for me, I'm going to have to sign things and put things in place. And no, the training providers will do all of that, and they'll just drop in on a kind of usually about a 6 to 8 week kind of, and just check that the learner's doing okay, have a quick word with you, a half an hour minute meeting, sign it off, and that's as much as you need to do, other than being there to encourage and support and to kind of to put those training places, kind of to identify those areas they want to train and to give them projects.
Excellent. So do you have any stories that you could kind of maybe share of potentially someone who's gone from being before apprenticeship to doing apprenticeship to kind of the outcomes, maybe from when they've completed it?
If you're thinking about kind of aspirational kind of career paths, I guess I'm thinking more of the people who started, so they're kind of more kind of in my age bracket now. They started off originally with the old-fashioned apprenticeships and are very pro. And I can think of one particularly. I'm not going to mention his name because otherwise, just in case. And he started, and he's an executive chef now of a huge corporation, and he started as a little commis chef apprenticeship, and I think he started it with Westminster Kingsway College as well, because that's obviously a very renowned college that's been working in this field for a long time, and has worked his way through and gone on to another apprenticeship. Because once you have one apprenticeship, it doesn't mean that that's it. You've used a fund.
Okay.
You can use it, so you can go from commis chef, and then you can go to CDP, and then after that you can go to head chef. You can go to head chef, using the different standards along the way to get you to that position. So I think if you think, wow, you can go from being a commis chef, we can give you all of those learnings to get you to that executive chef position that you want. That's amazing.
Incredible, absolutely incredible.
And there's not a penny spent
going
to university. And I'm a great advocate of the university. It's fabulous because some of the apprenticeships are linked with the university, especially for the degree levels. But, it's expensive.
It's very expensive, and sometimes, I'm only speaking from my own experience, lacks the practical element of work, which I didn't have in my university, which I really wanted. And when I went into work and I look at my husband, who did a more practical course, he was way better set up to go into the working world than I was. I had a lovely, great, shiny university degree.
And
it looks good on paper. Exactly. And I spent a lot of money, but didn't feel quite as prepared as I think he did. And so sometimes, not in every case, it might be a better option.
And if you're an employer and you have a choice of 2 candidates, shall we say, in your recruitment process, and you have somebody who's just finished as a degree graduate, fabulous, but it's a little bit green on the operational side of things, or you have somebody who's just finished their management hospitality level 4, and so is qualified to that level, they have their certificate, but they also have got now 24 months experience in the role. which one are you going to say? Which
It's a
one?
no-brainer, isn't it?
I know it's not.
I wouldn't have got the job.
a leading question, but kind of as a recruitment recruitment background and also ops background, I know which one I'm going to choose immediately.
100%, yeah.
And so maybe necessarily, yes, there's absolutely a need for the hospitality to be working within that field, making sure that we are offering those positions, offering those as you know, because you don't have to just use entry level for your team members and your CDPs and your commie chefs. You can still put out an apprenticeship. Say, for example, a really brilliant one at the moment is the digital marketing. So that is huge at the moment because we've got the multi-channel marketeer, which is at a level 4, I think it is level 5, and so level 4, and that's brilliant for enhancing your people team, because you may have a young graduate who's just finished and they're fabulous in their kind of business and finance, but they haven't got that kind of sector experience, and then they can be put on one of those and also build your marketing and your networking and your social media for you, whilst also creating giving them a qualification at the end of it.
Oh, that sounds brilliant.
So good.
Yeah.
The best one's got to be coaching level 5 though.
Brilliant.
Coaching apprenticeship.
Yeah. Talk to me.
How many?
Now you're interested, aren't you?
This is going to be for me.
Coaching. Yeah, honestly, I'll be like, I'm there next year. Got a little bit too much on this year, but next year. Yeah. But I mean, it's a massive skill gap again within our senior leadership team potentially, but also within a L&D and a people space, being able to learn that skill of coaching and mentoring is huge, and it really benefits the people side of the business for sure, and that's proving to be a really popular. Or if they've had any issues with management sort of being able to relay back to maybe a younger team or. Let's face it, we've got 5 generations in the workplace. It came up quite a lot at the Propel conference. Yeah. And it intrigues me massively about how differently the working place is now. So something like coaching, we're seeing coaching and mentoring pop up all over the place, but the fact that you can actually get a qualification whilst you're doing an apprenticeship with a levy pot that most pub businesses, restaurants, all of hospitality have got sitting there, that would be really useful to be able to develop their people side of the team.
Excellent. And it does come back to kind of the reason why we're here. Like, it's to help grow your teams, like nurture your teams, take care of your teams, keep them in industry. We we were talking about this recently, and I think, if we look back, people used to go to work, but it feels like now people want to work in a job that actually suits them and that they enjoy, and it's more integrated in their life than it kind of being personal life over here, work life over here. People now have the choice and want to choose where they work and will, and so to be more appealing.
I think to quote the fabulous Katie Moses from Cam Media.
She is fabulous.
And I will pinch her. Sorry, Katie. I will pinch her phrase, and it is now a life-work balance, not a work-life balance, and that's what people are seeking. And I think if you can incorporate something for them as well, so it's just like, right, I want to learn, I want my progression, I want my next step. How are you going to offer that to me? And within small businesses, you haven't got the funding to be able to do that. You can't say, well, this is your next move and we can put you on these fabulous external training courses. You can run up a mountain and back down again, and and do these fabulous courses. But what we can do then is they can offer that, because they can still offer that through apprenticeships. Absolutely. So they can kind of offer them their future management. So there's lots of I just think visibility, awareness. Let's get using that money. Let's put it into good practice so that we can actually take that levy funding that's sat in that huge pot and use it. Use it for our SMEs. Let's upskill. But we've talked about a lot about the employer and how it benefits the employer. But the benefit to the industry as a whole is huge, because we are upskilling. Because let's face it, it's kind of, we know it's transient staff. We know we're going to have to keep them. That's another reason people think, oh, they're not going to stay with us for that period of time. Why would we bother training them to give them to somebody else? Well, because you may receive somebody else who has had that training as well.
This is true.
So it literally, I think, for me, the massive massive word that we need to start using is collaboration, partnership and collaboration. And so I think if we can nurture that, and we can start using the big guys who have the fabulous pots sitting there waiting.
That, by the way, could never ever spend their apprenticeship levy.
Really?
It doesn't, because the big boys, you know, their payroll, their bill, sorry, don't say payroll, it's pay bill, is over 3 million, right?
Okay.
So they're going to have huge levy pots, and already a lot of the big guys do. They gift to charities, they gift to sort of community initiatives. So they are trying to best place it as much as they can. But there's definitely more that can be done to collaborate and partner businesses, you know, with SMEs to be able to help them upskill their people, because as we just said, collaboration, they're going to go, as long as they stay within the industry, that is the benefit to it, right?
Yeah.
They could never do enough apprenticeships. They'd have to have thousands a year.
Okay.
Big shout out to Marston's, who is our most recent gifter.
Really?
To a small SME.
Oh, excellent.
So they are, and it's fabulous, because they are enabling companies now to put those projects in place, to put those apprenticeship schemes in place and build their teams. And so that is fantastic, because without the help of those larger companies, not seeing us as competitors, but seeing us though as partners, and how we can work with them. And because, you know, kind of there's it's our great British pub, isn't it? We've got them up and down the country, on every high street, on every corner, in every village. And I think for now, for now. But if we can retain the staff within them, so give the opportunity to the next generation that's coming through, but to give them a formal qualification at the end of it, but some brilliant training along the way, and keep them with our industry. That's what we're all about. And I think the key to the whole thing is the levy pot. The key to the whole thing is your apprenticeship levy. We need to use it. We need to use it for our industry and not give it back to the government. So that's our massive mission, isn't it? To make sure that companies understand fully what they're entitled to, how they can receive the funding, how they can work the system to make sure that it works for them, and to tap into that extra funding that they all have the ability to gain, but nobody's using.
So I obviously feel massively inspired now. As an individual, I guess, where could I start? I know that our company has a levy pot, so I guess I'm potentially one step ahead. But what could I do? Where would I, find out what courses are available, and how do I take that then to my organisation?
So from our perspective, I know that you stand alone and you think, right, I've got all this information now, I know that there's something available to me, but where do I begin? Then yes, we can step in and advise. So what we can do is, because there's over 600 apprenticeship standards and there are hundreds of training providers, and one size does not fit all. So you can't just choose one training provider and then it will cover all of your standards, because they specialize in those different areas. And so what we do is we'll kind of make sure that we kind of unpick for you which one is going to, we'll recommend maybe 2 or 3 different ones, depending on your delivery of style, depending on whether you want them to have one day at college or when you prefer an online training delivery, depending on what level you want them to get to, looking at your career progression plans. So you kind of, we do a learning needs analysis to see where about your biggest need is and your skill gap within your business, and then kind of just say, right, this is where you need to be looking at. This is what we need to do, put a strategy in place. And we are very happy. Pick up the phone, give us a call, kind of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Let's go in, because what we want people is to start using their levy. So I think the biggest point is to get to a point where you have a plan in place to be able to present to your stakeholders. They'll want to know facts and figures, and they'll want to drill down on the numbers, and of course they will. But as soon as you mention, for example, say you have £120,000 pounds sat in your levy pot, for example, and it's just sitting there and it's expiring. As soon as you bring the numbers to the board and say we're losing £5,000 a month on a monthly basis, which we could be utilising for our training package and training kind of a strategy, that's when people sit up and listen. Your FD is going to go, what do you mean we're losing money? Where's it going? Where's it going? Why aren't we using it? Why aren't we using this money then? Well, let's get access into this pot. How can we get access into this pot? Right, come in, tell me what I need to do. And this is where people sit up and listen. This is where you can capitalise on the utilisation of your levy funding.
That's a great piece of advice.
So basically, Kaylee's going to go straight to you want to look at the Institute of Apprenticeships this evening and just search all of the courses.
Yeah.
But what's going to personally develop you? What do you want to do? So you can think about what you want to do and, you know, look at the Institute of Apprenticeships. You can search all of the apprenticeship standards on there. Honestly, it's like I go down a rabbit hole when I go into it.
I
So I'm
can
like,
only imagine.
oh, I can do this. Oh, I could do that. There is so much.
Yeah.
So obviously, from a work perspective, for your employer is going to want to know how you streamline this to your development with your business. But the amount of opportunities out there are huge. So I reckon the coaching one. I feel like we're going to have a chat later about this.
Well, maybe we can come back and I'll have done the course and then we can go through like a lived experience. You've piqued my interest. Honestly, I'm like, oh, this sounds nice.
And not just for you, but for your team as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you're looking at the most bizarre I've just done, and I really didn't. I know more than I should know about it. Is cyber. So a cyber engineer, because the IT department wanted to understand what they were doing. And obviously we're holding a lot more data at the moment. We're asking people's credit cards and details, aren't we? If they're booking, you know, kind of potentially the larger guys are wanting to reserve their spaces.
Absolutely.
And so now there's a need for that kind of cyber engineer kind of IT development. And so that, again, is not something you would naturally think that you would need within the hospitality sector.
Yeah.
But it's all of our head office functions that we can kind of spin off, and you can capitalise on that because you can bring these brilliant people into our sector, because that's what we want. We want to bring the people in because we have such a brilliant, diverse group. It's not just I'm a waiter, you know. No. You kind of, you know, when you start as a doctor, you don't start as a surgeon. You start as a. So why don't we have the same credibility? We start as a, you know, and then you're looking after a multi-million corporation as a director. So we have this beautiful ability to take somebody who's completely unskilled and give them that career pathway to get them to exactly where they want to be. And I think, the key is apprenticeships.
Well, thank you. Do you think, is there anything, I feel like the answer has to be no, that we haven't covered that is important?
Well, if you're asking us, we could literally sit here and talk all day about apprenticeships because it's such a big topic.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is one of the biggest, you know, barriers as well, because it is a huge topic.
Yeah.
So people can't fully understand it because it's never ending. The opportunities are never ending.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, to know that there's people out there who actually are experts in this and you can offer help. So if somebody does go on, gets overwhelmed, don't end it there. Kind of pick up the phone.
Seriously,
and drop you a message.
We're not affiliated to one particular training provider.
Okay.
So what we do is get the best training provider and the best course for that person and for that business need. So it really just depends on what you want. I suppose the parting gift would be that there's 3.3 billion over the last 3 years has been given back to the government. So get your hands on that money. If you're an SME, if you're a small business, even if you're a very large business that just is giving their money away, look at your strategy again and make sure that we are upskilling our team to enable them to retain them, and also use it as a recruitment tool. Use it as your strategic, cost-effective training strategy. Put it in place.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for joining. That was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.